All right, y'all are in for a treat. We have a very good speaker, somebody really excited to bring to the Texas Jail Association. I met him in Genesee County, Michigan, where I went to learn about the programs that they have there. It's called I.G.N.I.T.E. Sheriff Chris Swanson started this back in 2020. And I.G.N.I.T.E stands for Inmate Growth Naturally and Intentionally Through Education. And I firmly believe that programs is the future of corrections. We're doing that program at Collin County. It's like I said before, if we're not teaching anybody a lesson unless we have a lesson plan. And that's where I.G.N.I.T.E comes in. And, you know, we owe it to the victims, and we owe it to our staff. Because if you have programs like this in your jail, your incidents go down. Your jail becomes safer. And this is undisputed. This has been proven. There's a Harvard study on this that shows it. But, you know, we owe it to the victims, and not just the current victims. What I'm talking about is future victims. Every person that is left unchanged can do an incredible amount of damage in their lifetime. And so why not, while we have a captive audience, go ahead and fill their time with educational programs instead of just letting them lay around in a bunk all day or playing on the tablet or playing dominoes or, you know, learning how to be a better shade tree pharmaceutical rep. But this is a future, and I've started it, a number of programs in the jail. It's an operational philosophy with programs that says you're going to have some and have programs for everybody and then incentivize them. You know, jail standards, correct me if I'm wrong, does not require that they get the day room all day, every day. That's our day room. It's our time. We can have activities that are designed for the rehabilitation of these folks and have better outcomes. It is my absolute pleasure to introduce Sheriff Chris Swanson from Genesee County, Michigan. Sheriff, please come on up.
Now, I don't want you to think they're leaving because of me. They're going to go take a picture, all right? So, bad timing, but I want to point it out. Perception's reality. Oh, they are? All right. Well, I don't know if they know that. The sergeant at arms moves. Everybody moves. You know, in the book of Matthew, chapter 25, it's in the middle of the ministry. And Jesus is in the middle talking to his people. And many times he's talking about truths that folks don't understand because they've never been used to it. It's new. And he tells about the story where his people were taken care of. He tells a story about where he was taken care of. And the listeners were confused. Chapter 25, verse 40, they were asking questions. Well, what do you mean we took care of you? And he said, when I was hungry, you brought me food. When I was thirsty, you gave me drink. When I was alone, you gave me comfort. When I needed shelter, you gave me shelter. When I was in prison, you came and visited. And the receiver is asked the question, when did that happen? When were you hungry? When were you thirsty? When were you alone? When did you need shelter? And when were you locked up? And don't forget that this was a time period where there was no justice. People were imprisoned with no justice, no due process. There was death penalties with no juries. And so when you use these big words of hunger and prison, it meant something then. He said, because what you did for the least of these, you did for me. He says, and when you don't do this, when you reject those that are hungry, when you forget about those that are thirsty, and what he's saying in 2024 is when you're in Texas And our positions are so where we forget those that are imprisoned. You reject me. And the truths of the Bible, whether you're an evangelical believer or not, hold true. That you're in this room not by accident, and neither am I. We are not weapons of justice, we are tools of justice. We are instruments of good. People love the police. They love corrections. It's our job to give them a reason why every single day. And what I do in Flint, Michigan has a direct impact on what happens in Jack County, Texas. How I treat people, how I run a jail has a direct impact to Galveston County, Texas. Just like what you do has a direct impact to me. When you think about life, and sometimes the reasons why we get into something is forgotten because of time and experience and stress of life, you all sometimes have to be reminded of the mission that you're on. You don't sell popsicles. You're in a business, you just heard the sheriff, where many people could never operate, not even a day. But something inside of you said, I'm going to raise my hand and I'm going to volunteer my life for people I don't know to make a meager salary, to be exposed publicly, because there's a fire inside. I have something I got to do. I have something I have to fulfill because I have a burden for the least of these. And you want to know why I know that's true with everybody in this room? Because you wouldn't be here if it wasn't true. You don't like when people are taken advantage of. You don't like when there's the tears of victims, and you don't fit well when there's people in life that are exploiting others. You have to do something. It's part of inside of you. You know why? Because you're good people. Good people. And I can tell you, I have found in my 31 years of working in this business that good people find good people. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Sheriff Jim Skinner, Collin County, Texas. I wouldn't be here if I didn't find Jim Skinner and he didn't find Chris Swanson. And when that happens, you become a force multiplier. And if I could speak to the state of Texas, fly 3 hours, tell my wife in my office I'll be back on Tuesday night, to come here, the second biggest state in the nation, with 30 million people, to find more good people, to not get paid for being here, I'm doing it. I'm doing it. And by the time I'm done, I'm going to take you on a journey that's going to tap into your personal and your professional abilities, a journey that's going to either validate something you're doing as a personal leader, or it's going to challenge you to do something different as a leader in your own personal life. The families that you have that are dealing with issues right now, the text messages that you just responded to this morning, you know what you're dealing with back home. You have these internal struggles, the diagnosis that you just got, the financial stress that you're dealing with, the bills that are due tomorrow afternoon by 4. All that personal life, it does fall into what we do professionally. I'm going to help you with that journey, because if you can take care of that, it's going to make you a better person in your professional life, because those are the decisions that have greater consequences. Every word out of my mouth is a sheriff. Standing here, getting the blessing to come down here, getting the trust. Skinner's not even here, but he trusts my word. That means what I take care of at home has a direct impact on what I'm doing in front of you. So professionally, I too have to be conscious of being a leader. Just because I've been a sheriff for 5 years, been on the job for all these decades, that doesn't make me a leader tomorrow. Just because I had a great life yesterday and everything is clicking doesn't mean that the storm is coming. And that's the journey I'm taking you on. You're going to be able to leave here before lunch. We have a little break in between. You're going to leave here before lunch, and you're going to be able to make a decision. And at the end of this talk, something magical is going to happen. Mark my words. You're going to feel something that you didn't expect to feel this morning when you woke up. When you saw the keynote address and you wonder, what is this Ignite thing? I promise you somebody in this room is going to be moved. Just wait. Because I've never talked about what I'm going to talk to you about, and it hasn't happened. I'm just the messenger. When I'm in front of good people and we become force multipliers, great things happen. What makes a good person? I mean, it's pretty subjective. I mean, there's people that you know that folks like that aren't good people, and you often wonder, like, why? What is it about them? It's very subjective. It's very personal. But I know in my life, in Swanson's life, the people that I look up to, the people that I mentor, the people that I actually strive to be like, think about who they are in your life. Think about who they are. You've got a vision in your head. Maybe they're alive, maybe they're dead. You can hear their sweet voice. These are the people that poured into you when you did not deserve it. They showed mercy. These people in your life, these good people in your life, they helped carve a path for you. They opened up doors of opportunity. They picked you up when you needed to be lifted. They kept you encouraged when everybody was attacking you. They paid for your college. You know these good people in your life? Yes? Right on. You can see her face, can't you? One more over here. Yes? Your father, what's his name? I'm sorry? Amen, that's a big father. How come no dudes raise their hand? How come no dude says, hey, I know exactly who my good person is? I need a fella to raise his hand. In fact, I'm going to ask a fella to stand up. Stand up. Tell me who your good person is in your life. Who's Mr. Johnson? Johnson, stand up with your pinky shirt. Where are you? There he is. Tell me why. Why do you point him out? That's it. I bet you woke up this morning, didn't think that you'd be highlighted in front of 500 people, that you're a humble leader and you take care of people. Am I right, sir? You didn't expect that. Let me tell you why. Because good people recognize good people. Somebody who is a change agent, somebody who's an influencer, I'm going to tell you there's 3 characteristics, and it doesn't matter where you are, you meet these characteristics. And I'm asking you, if you're going to do what we came here to do this week, and you're going to leave your mark, and follow these 3 disciplines. Number 1, a good person is a competitor. You're an athlete. I'm not saying you're in athletics. I'm saying that you have a competitive mindset, that you're willing to work for something using discipline and discernment and sacrifice. You're willing to leave a pound of flesh behind in order to win someone's trust, in order to help somebody. See, when you have a competitive mindset, there's juices that flow. Think back when you were in sports, whether it's elementary, middle school, summer ball, high school, college, it doesn't matter. Think of what it's like when Texas played Michigan. That was not me. There you go. It was a dark day in Michigan on Saturday. I'll give it to you. 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 But you know what? When you watch sports, when you watch something that goes and it stirs something up, you know what that is? That's in all of us. I'm here because I have a competitive mindset to do exactly what Johnny said, to make Ignite the national standard in America. Because I know that there are families on the other side, those future victims that don't need to have knocks on the doors, that don't need to be told that their loved one was killed, raped. They don't need to have that brokenness happen. They don't need to understand about what it's like to deal with a fentanyl death. Like, I'm competing for these people and you don't even know their names, nor do I. Somebody who's a competitor is a good person because they're worth fighting for. Somebody who's a competitor is worth joining a board and adding something else to your schedule and sitting together at the same shirts and knowing that you got to put things aside to be there with the team and all the past presidents. Like, if it's worth fighting for, then it's worth competing for. I'm competing for my wife. 30 years married. I met her in jail. Her name is Jamie. Yes, I met her in jail. It's a great story. I usually let that settle. She's a social worker. I'm competing for my boys, 25 and 23 years old, Riley and Jordan. I'm competing for my office. I'm competing for my own personal health and safety. I'm competing for it because I can tell you this, if you don't, somebody else is. If you don't compete for something that's worthwhile, somebody else is. And you know what you've done? You've stepped on the sidelines and said, take over. That's not who you are. Maybe that's been happening in your life, and you wonder why you don't have any motivation. You don't have any inspiration. You're just checking boxes because you have given up the athletic mindset. You have given up the fight. That day's gone. As I said, you're not here by accident. Don't look at the person next to you, behind you. Don't think of the person who should be hearing this. I'm speaking to your soul. It's worth competing for the people who can't compete for themselves. This is not an easy job, but it's worth it. That's number one. That's a discipline that when you want to be a change agent, an influencer, a good person, somebody who gets identified in front of 500 people, you compete for what's worth it. Number two, I learned this in Ironman. Ironman is a 2.4 mile swim, 112 bike, and a 26.2 marathon, 140.6 miles. I learned this the hard way, is you got to go into a competition with this mindset. Finish or die trying. Finish or die trying. Do you know when you do something constructive in life, it doesn't matter what it is and where it is, it spills over into every other aspect of your life. When you do something good, it spills over into every area of your life. And when you do something destructive, the same rule applies. When you're doing things, saying things, being with people, you have an idea about something and you just know that it's not working and there's tension and there's stress and there's complications. When that happens, when you give up on something or you don't follow through or something is broken in your life, that too spills over into every area of your life. But if you have a mindset, whatever you have in mind, whatever you focused on, whatever you're going to do, right now, today, it's Ignite. That's why I'm here. It's not the only thing that I'm doing. It's not the only thing that I care about, but it is right now my focus. So I'm coming down here as a competitor, and I'm going to sell it, and I'm going to get people to move, Johnny, right? We're going to have people move today because I'm going to come down here and I'm going to finish what I started, but I'm going to die trying, even if not one person stands. Right now, if we heard shots fired outside that hallway, you would have a massive cowboy hats and blue shirts and cowboy boots just pushing out of these doors, trying to figure out what you can do to help. You're willing to risk it all. You're willing to just lay it on the line. You're willing to work weekends and holidays and miss birthday parties and soccer games because you have it inside of you. Don't let that just stop at the uniform. Compete for your kids, your grandkids. Compete for your families. Compete for those things. Maybe you just tapped out. Maybe you lost the first quarter. The game is not over. The game is over when you breathe your last and you beat your chest, and it's done. When that is done, then the game is over. Until then, whatever you do, you compete for it and you finish or die trying. Number three, in our age group, this term is sometimes seen as egocentric. We try to shy away from it like, oh, no, that's not me. This title that people can carry is one that we try to minimize because internally we think it's naughty. We think it's self-serving. Sometimes people call it humility. Some people just don't think they've earned it. But you know what powerful number three is? I'm telling you. I mentioned good people. I mentioned force multiplier. The definition of this title in number 3 is defined as someone who has courage, somebody of noble character, somebody whose yea is their yea and their nay is their nay. You don't need a contract. You just need a handshake. You know these people? They're called heroes. They're called heroes. My first hero growing up was Lou Ferrigno as he played the Incredible Hulk. Because I was a heavy-set kid growing up. I'm the youngest of 4. I'm not trying to be a martyr. I'm just telling you, Chris Swanson was not an athlete till he was later in life. And there was something that happened when David Banner turned into the Incredible Hulk. And I had paid $5 at a comic book store in 1979 for a picture of Lou Ferrigno in a silver frame that's just doing that most muscular pose, and it was on my dresser. I loved what the Incredible Hulk stood for. I didn't even realize it back then as a 7-year-old kid. But I do know that he stood up against evil. My dad and my grandpa are both Detroit cops. My grandpa did 32 years Detroit police, was in the 1945 riots. My dad was in the 1967 race riots in Detroit, and it was inside my belly to do this. And when I say growing up, I didn't realize those heroes that were not popular until later in life, which is not uncommon. But my first recorded hero was the Incredible Hulk. I want you to know, whether you believe it or not, that you are a hero to somebody right now. You're a hero. Somebody's looking up to you. Somebody's watching you. Somebody has an idea. Somebody follows you on social media. Somebody is inspired by you. There's somebody that when they hear your name or they see your face or they remember something, that you are that person that we just asked to be identified. Don't run away from that title. You know what that title is? That title is a burden. That title means that there's greater accountability. Imagine if nobody even wanted you. Imagine if nobody counted on you. That's a lonely life. But you're here because you're a competitor. That you've already dedicated your life to the point of death because you want to be the hero of society. And the hero is not defined by a party, a color, a gender, age, education. Heroes are courageous nobility. That's it. And a hero doesn't mean that they're perfect. A hero means that they're far from perfect. But there's something in them that you want to emulate. There's something that you want to follow. You want to become that force multiplier down the road. And so you work on it every single day. Every single day you just say, I want to be like this person. I want to be like this person. I wanted to be like the Incredible Hulk. I wanted to be able to go and protect people. I didn't even know it. Your brain's not even fully developed to age 25. But at 7 years old, Lou Ferrigno, who already had a speech impediment, he was disabled, who found a role like somebody was his hero. That's what you need to do. You need to find the hero inside of you. And I'm not saying this because I want this to be an emotional talk, because the emotion is going to cause an action. Because if you want to be that person that people follow, you want to be that competitor, you want to have that mindset of finish or die trying, it is only identified through action. Anybody here like me tired of lip service? Tired of people just talking about all the stuff they're doing? Online generals and keyboard artists, they have nothing, no value in your life, but they're telling all the things that you should do. Like, nobody follows these people because they're just lip service. They couldn't even work a shift in your boots. They wouldn't sacrifice everything to come here and just be a part of this. Let me tell you, when you put action behind your words, people become believers. It may not happen quick, but if you continue to stay the course, you will move people, you will impact people, and you will change lives. And when those things happen, those moments with momentum create movements. And what better state in the state of Texas to do it. You don't need to be from here to know what history you have in America. You don't need to be here to watch from the sidelines to see all the greatness that's come from this state. And I'm not saying it because I need to get some good points. I'm saying it because it's true. History is a great teacher of the future. And if we are like-minded and we're force multiplying and things happen here, imagine what others will do because they're looking for the hero state. They're looking for the hero sheriff's office. They're looking for the hero. They're looking for the competitor. They're looking for people who truly do care about other people, the least of these. And I believe they're in this room. I believe they're in this state. You got to put action behind it. And I'm going to tell you this, when you put action behind it, it's got to be intentional. There's no days off. I told this to Harbaugh when he was a coach at Michigan. I was having a conversation with his team before a game in 2022, and I said, hey, just want you all to know, heroes have no days off. No days off. No days off. Who doesn't want a title that other people count on to help them in their greatest need? I mean, that's just human nature. So if you have no days off, that means every day there's going to have to be action. You can't just sit in your hotel room and say, oh yeah, I went to the conference there in Galveston, it was great. No, you got to be here. You got to be engaged. There's people that are not in this room because they chose not to be here, and they're missing out on valuable content that's not going to move the needle like it's going to move in your life. Not because I said it, because something's inside of you stirring. You want to put action behind it. And sometimes you got to be intentional about that action. You need to do the preparation, because when preparation and opportunity, when they intersect, that's where you succeed. Preparation, mind, body, and spirit, education. Every time, every day, you're out there and you're working and you're keeping all that in check, because when the opportunity comes, you better be ready. I'm not talking about financial opportunity. That's one of them. I'm not even talking about relational opportunity or even business opportunity. Those are all important and they're on the chart. I'm talking about the opportunity to change the way, to impact the way, to create a movement that changes this country. I remember the time where I saw Steve Jobs introduce the iPod. And it was such a breakthrough. I remember holding up that little piece of instrument. He said, there's 5,000 songs on here. I remember back in 1998, somebody said, you know, there's a new phone they're developing that all your information is going to be on the phone. You won't even need computers. You won't need landlines. You won't need anything. You can order your groceries from your phone. You'll be able to listen to music and watch movies. It's all on your phone. It's going to be right there, and you'll be able to have it in your pocket. And we were all like, no way. You want to know who pushed that? Competitors that'll finish or die trying, that are heroes. People are willing to step out and say, hey, we're not going to just add another program. We're going to change culture. We're going to change culture. We're going to step up. And there's a lot of people in leadership positions but are not leaders because they haven't prepared themselves for the moment. And when the moment comes, you better be ready. So Swanson, when do I start preparing? Right now. Right now. And sometimes you got to do things that are completely off the grid. Some things you got to do things that nobody even sees you doing in order for that preparation to happen. You got to prepare as much personally to be a leader as you do professionally, because again, they intersect. They are interdependent. What you do off duty is just as vital as what you do on duty, and vice versa. If you're going to be a hero to this community, to your state, your family, then every day is prep day. Every day. Because when the moment comes and you're not ready, you miss out. And imagine if you miss out on the greatest opportunity, what lives are impacted. And if you track it all the way back, it's because you chose not to prepare. As a non-athlete growing up. For the fellas here, you know, when you are splitting up teams as a young youth, it's shirts and skins. I hated skins. It was embarrassing. It was awful. And you got to go there and you got to fake it, and kids are cruel, as you know, and And, it just drives people. It drives people. I got cut from 9th grade baseball. I didn't compete for 14 years. But then something happened in 2000. There was a switch. I looked at myself. I'd been out of police academy for 6 years. I'd been hired 7 years. I had just come off a dope team. And I looked in the mirror. And I saw a profile of myself. And I thought, what the heck? And that was a moment that this intruder in my life was kicked out of my life. And I became a competitor. I did my first bodybuilding show in November 2000. I figured, man, if I'm going to stand on a stage, I better figure this stuff out. And 4 shows later, and I started getting into running and triathlons, and I did my first marathon, and one thing led to another, and when you do one thing, it just keeps opening up doors, and it's like walk a mile, see a mile. You don't always realize where you're going, or you don't always figure out the plan to get there, but you know where you're going. And so I had all these seed planters, these heroes in my life that kept keeping me on track. And so in 2005, Al Jansen, a doctor at the ER in our community, called me up, and I was a captain at the time, and he said, hey, man, he goes, I just got done with the 2005 Ironman in Panama City Beach, Florida. He goes, it's going to change your life. Come over. I go to his office. And he's got his bib there. He's got his photos, and he's got his medal there. He goes, dude, I can give any drug on the planet. There ain't nothing like crossing the finish line and hearing your name. Chris Swanson from Davison, Michigan. You're an Iron Man. And he planted that seed. I said, do you think I could do something like that? Oh, yeah. He goes, nobody's ready for it. But when you push through, it takes you to a level. It takes you to this place in your mind where, and until you fight for it, you can't understand it. But when you get there, you'll know it. Like a nirvana moment, it's planted that seed, and the next year I signed up. And so just across the Gulf, first Saturday of November 2007, I'm looking at the Gulf of Mexico. And we heard the cannon, and boom, in the water I go. It's a double 1.2-mile loop. I come out the first loop and go along the beach, hit my second loop, and jump on the bike, and get on the bike. And Florida roads are flat, but they're chippy. And it's hot. And so we get off the bike, and I go to the run, and it's a double 1 mile loop. And so I started at 7 in the morning, and at 9:11 at night, that seed that was planted 2 years before came to pass. I remember them saying, Chris Swanson from Davison, Michigan, you're an Iron Man. And down I went to the ER. Metal, hypovolemic, hypothermic. It was a wreck, but I got my medal. My wife's there. I'm in the med tent. I got the bear blanket on me. I'm got double IVs going, and I said, hey, it's good. I said, I'm feeling better. And she goes, whatever you do, don't ever do that again. And so I listened to my wife. So 2009, I signed up for Louisville Ironman. And I wanted to get that feeling again. And Jamie, after that, I finished just after 10 hours and heard the same thing, and boom, down in the med tent I went, like a big MASH unit. Double IVs, Zofran, and the medal on my chest. 2 years later, I did Florida again, number 3. And I wanted to go master it and try to beat my time. And I crashed at mile 81. I hit one of those chip rocks, and down I went. And I got up, and I was bleeding and road rash everywhere, and spun my tires to make sure I didn't crash and burn my tires out. And it was perfect. And I get off the bike. I had this micro trauma. I was sick. I finished that Ironman, number 3. Right in the med tent I went. Ironman number 4 was in Madison, Wisconsin, 2014. What I didn't realize in Wisconsin is they have hills. And I didn't train for hills. And when I was doing the hills, I realized that when you don't train for something, it takes a pound of extra flesh. And I remember getting done, and I'm normally off my bike at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and it wasn't until 6 o'clock, and you got to finish by midnight. And I remember looking at Jamie, and I said, it's going to be a long night. Ironman number 4 taught me the greatest lesson of all 5 that I've done. It was in Wisconsin that I learned the life lessons that have truly transformed my life. It was in Wisconsin, 2014, that is going to push me into a direction, and you heard it here, that's going to change millions and millions of lives before the Lord takes me home. I believe it. I'll go where I need to go to get what I need to get done for the good of the people. And Ironman number 4, on that second loop after the run, I was exhausted. I had just under 2 hours to run another 13.1 miles, and I was tapped out. I was 15 pounds heavier than I should have been. I hadn't trained for the hills, which took a lot out of me. And Jamie came up and she's like, listen, you don't have to prove anything. You don't have to prove anything. See, Ironman number 4 taught me this. Number 1, start with a big fat vision. I realized that I should not be this kind of an athlete, but a vision was planted in my head, and you don't need to explain it to the person next to you. You don't need to explain it to the people at dinner or the ones who share your DNA. If you've been given the vision, it's yours. Some people won't even understand why you do what you do. But if you got a peace beyond all understanding, if peace is your compass, then walk. We talk about it, do it. And it taught me this big fat vision of whatever it was in life. If I paint it in my head, it's done. What is your big fat vision? What is the thing that you have been striving for that maybe you put on a shelf? Ironman taught me to stay the course. For a year, you're training 6 days a week while I'm working full time and I teach at Michigan and I have families and all. I mean, ready never comes, by the way. Ready never comes. So don't think it's going to come. But when that vision is out there, you're going to keep walking. It taught me lesson number 2. When I said I was going to do something, I tell people. Because accountability is a heavy burden. For those that are clean and dry, those who have struggled with addiction, alcohol, you know exactly what that means. Accountability is not weakness. Accountability is strength. David had mighty men around him. I have mighty people that keep me between the ditches. I know where my weaknesses are. I know where I can get tempted. So I have people around me for that accountability. And we celebrate that. Lesson number 3 is every time you break a barrier, celebrate it. Recognize it. You may be the only one. At mile 56 on all my Ironmans, I tape a pack of Skittles, a snack pack of Skittles, because I know at mile 56, it's halfway through the bike, and I get to have my Skittles. Nobody else knows that, but I know that is a benchmark. If you are clean and dry, stand up and be recognized. You've earned this recognition. Watch this. Stand up and be recognized. Anybody here who has broken the barriers of addiction and alcohol and stands and says, listen, I am free. Do you have a story? Well, let me tell you this. Your accountability is going to hold people up when they can't hold themselves up. So a story of success in your life is going to help somebody else. When you have accountability and you match that with small victories, with that big vision, it's going to shut the mouths of your enemies. Lesson number 4. When you shut the mouths of your enemies, these are people that do not want you to succeed. These are people that are waiting for you to quit. And look on that website and see, did not finish, DNF. There's people probably looking at you in your career. And they may say something, but you know one move. The sheriff just said it's his last year. The birds are already circling. Well, if this person goes and that person goes and this is going to happen and that's going to happen and this person doesn't deserve it. And remember this person back what they did in 1997, blah, 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 blah. You know what shuts the mouths of your enemies? Results. All the things, everything that somebody says, just prove them wrong with results. Don't even say anything. Just get it done. Just get it done. Lesson number 4 for Ironman, after that vision and those accountability steps and the small little victories that only you can celebrate. When you see the progress like a I.G.N.I.T.E Harvard study, when you see that happening, people move because they're watching. And they can't talk trash anymore because you can't trash results. Lesson number 4. But lesson number 5 came at Wisconsin. Because when I was there at that first loop, and I had nothing in the tank. I had to get up, and I did this slow death jog, and I remember going, and my knees and everything hurt. My buddy Casey's running with me, and it was painful. I heard these little feet behind me. And my wife, who had never run more than 3 miles in her life, ran 13.1 miles with me. We cannot do this alone. If you try to find reasons why not to work with somebody, you're going to find them. You're going to find them. Oh, they don't check this box. Oh, they're too this. Or I saw this. If you want to find something, you're going to find it. Guilty as charged. Guaranteed. If there's some things I don't want to do, I'm going to find a reason why not to do it. But if the vision is big enough and you believe it enough, then you find other people that believe the same and nothing can stop you. It may be you being the first one out. It may be the one that where you have to take that first leap of faith. You got to raise your hand first and others will follow. That's leadership. That leadership is what changes culture. And when you do all of that and you keep training, whether it's an Ironman, whether it's whatever you do in your life, and you put it into the field that you're in, lives are changed. People's lives are saved. People have new beginnings. You change family trees. When you keep people from being victimized or you keep people from coming back into the jail, you break the generation of poverty, you break the generation of incarceration, you break the generation of addiction, and somebody can say, it was you that did it for our family. Do you know what that is? I mean, that is legacy. That is culture change. That is history. As I said, this state is rich with history of people raising their hand and saying exactly what I'm asking you to say. I am going to be the one. Because when these moments happen, with momentum, it creates these movements that change history. You probably saw the same thing I did on May 25th, 2020. You saw a grown man in Minneapolis, Minnesota, for 9 minutes, beg for his life. Forget why he was there. Forget all the stuff that everybody... I'm telling you, you saw a human being lose his life in broad daylight. But he's somebody who wears a uniform just like you. There's a lesson in our business. There's a certain point in time where the fight is over. There's things and rules in our business that we operate under because we are hands of justice and we're civilized. And when you watch that video like I did, it didn't matter where you were. It's not who we are. It's not who we are. Not what we stand for. And in Flint, Michigan, we just come off a water crisis in 2016. And in 2016, imagine January the 4th, middle of winter, you're telling a city of just under 100,000 people, no more drinking, no businesses, no bathing, no formula, no nothing. Like, you've got to figure it out. We were getting flatbeds of trucks with bottles of water, going at the first house at Saginaw, Pasadena. I knocked on that door. Here's your case of water. We'll be back. That whole year, deploying the National Guard to bring water to people and change filters and pipes. And then on top of that, Flint, Michigan, which has a history of not only just poverty, but crime and all the things that you may have heard about with Flint. This is the surface. This is just what's holding back to this huge pressure that's behind it. And when we saw what happened in Minneapolis, that spilled over into all cities in America, one way or another. And it was certainly set up to do the same in Flint. On May 30th, 2020, we had a protest that was scheduled at 5 o'clock at the Target parking lot. Little did we know the night before that big cities in America would be lit on fire. That you would see this pressure from the 25th over to the 29th, spilling into the 30th, where once it happens, it just happens. No, just remember what those visions were like and forget about the reasons why they happened. Just let's speak reality. When someone's bleeding from a crash, I'm not trying to figure out how bad of or good of a driver they are. I'm fixing the bleed. When you saw what we saw in Georgia, it's not, at the moment, you're not trying to figure out all the things that happened that caused it. You're like, how do we fix this right now? It's triaging, right? And so when we were triaging what's happening, I'm like, hey, this is happening in Flint. I'd been the sheriff at that point 5 months, 29 days. And when May 30th happened and this Target parking lot was the site, I flashed back to all these stories that my father had told me in the Detroit riots. There's going to be bloodshed. In downtown Detroit, 1967, they had the National Guard with tanks and howitzers blowing buildings up. I was born in 1972. I heard stories. I've watched the movies, but it's live time now. This is a powder keg. I understand that Michigan and Texas is somewhat different, but we're really not. If you've got people involved, you have pain. And so we had a staff meeting on the 30th at 1 o'clock, and I brought everybody in the sheriff's conference room, and I said, we can take 1,000 people to jail. We've got flex cuffs. We've got all of our transport vans lined up. We've got our OC pepper spray. We've got everything we need. And we're going to meet up at 4 o'clock, and as we deploy, we'll have our drones in the air. Flint Township Police Department was the incident command center. It was way over on the west side of the county in a business district, and so they're calling commands, and all these plans were made, and then we left that meeting, and sure enough, at 4 o'clock, we showed up, and I'm in a Pizza Hut parking lot, and it's just a crazy day because it was beautiful weather, and this 5-lane business road was just filled with unmarked cars. You hear the sounds of lumber being cut, and businesses being drilled. It was at that Target where they closed at 4 o'clock, and they boarded up all their glass, and you just feel this happening by the second, and just more and more tension. First car showed up at 5 o'clock. As they showed up at 5 o'clock, these things are happening. This energy is spilling over, and one led into another, into another, into another, into another. And as this was happening and rolling out and evolving, you could feel the tension. We had our intel detectives on all of our sites, and we had the state police. It's called MIOC. They're tracking where they're laying out weapons and Molotov cocktails, and we're tracking what directions they're going to go, what houses and neighborhoods they want to go and ransack. And this is happening live time. And around 7:30, the crowd now is 50-1 to us. They marched to the west, they marched to the east, they went back to the west, they stopped 75 traffic. Everything is happening. And they went back to the west, and there was this big pumper truck right on the border of where this township was, and they surrounded this pumper truck, and they did a northbound shot into a direct path of the Flint Township Police Department, the incident command. And when they did that, we knew that their intentions were to burn it down. That was the incident command, that was everything, right? And as they were turning, you could just feel the energy and the anger rise. And as the anger rose and all these things happened, and we immediately deployed to the back of the police department, geared up, body armor, masks, helmets, batons, shields. We were ready to fight. Clash was happening. I go to the back, and I remember looking over this knoll, and as the crowd's coming down the road, and they took up all the lanes, they're screaming on megaphones, just mother effing us. I literally thought to myself, how did this happen? How did it happen here when we didn't do anything? We were just taking care of people. And you don't even always try to have to figure out why things happen. You just need to know what you need to do when they happen. And as they were coming up, one of my guys, Rudy Lopez, he had a less than lethal shotgun with an orange stock and rail, and it could shoot OC spray into the crowd. And sure enough, he's tucked there, and I said, hey, Rudy, man, just tuck behind here. I said, it's going to send a bad message if people see this, and they could just like rush. And he's like, all right. And I showed another guy, Ryan Dobbs, and he's got the same thing, 6-year Marine, and him and I have known each other for 20 years. And he goes, Sheriff, he goes, look in the crowd, man, they're all open carry. And there's guns everywhere. One little thing, and it's over. Let me tell you what happens is when that moment happens, there's no time to prepare for something else. And I say that because that preparation, you've been there, you know what it's like, you know what's happening. There's pain that happens. People are screaming. This isn't just Flint. It's not just LA or New York or Miami. This is pain that people see our profession as we are the difference between chaos and order. There's people that just don't like authority. They don't care about you. They just don't like what you do. And the pain, one after another, just kept going. And we saw people confronting, and obviously there's a conflict happening. And as this is happening, I remember looking back, and as I saw these people turn around, and one of my captains came over and says, "Hey, Sheriff, this guy wants to talk to you." And is one of the organizers. And I didn't even give him a chance to say anything. I said, "Hey," I said, "that guy in Minneapolis isn't who we are." I said, "These cops are here to help you." I said, "We're here to protect you. That cop over there gives hugs. What do we need to do?" And in a minute, this guy says, "You tell the crowd what you told me." I said, "We'll get their attention." And that's what he did. He starts hollering, he goes, "Hey, everybody, the sheriff wants to say something." In this huge horseshoe. Let me assure you something, ladies and gentlemen. You don't pick time. Time picks you. And today's prep day for when your moment happens. Because this is going to open up a door that you never saw coming, because I can testify. I was there and I saw it. I'm looking at that from the outside thinking, that was why all these things happened, for that moment. Your moment. As I'm talking to him, I said, "Hey," I said, "listen," I said, "we're not here. That guy over there is not who we are." I said, "You got women, you got kids here, you got dogs, and, want to turn this into a parade, not a protest." I was trying to just de-escalate all the anxiety and the hate, just trying to use some words. And I asked a question. Let me assure you this. Those closest to any problem have the solution. You want to know why your kids are this way? Go ask them. You want to know why your spouse is this way? Go ask them. You want to know why your employee is this? Go ask them. Just go ask them. Just sit down and say, "Hey, you got to help me connect the dots." Those closest to any problem will have the solution. I said, "Hey, what do you need us to do?" And in a second, without even ever meeting together, this group started chanting, "Walk with us, walk with us." And again, we just talked about the Texas-Michigan game. That's a lot of chanting, but that chanting comes from the lungs. If you've ever done a death notification, you know that those tears come from the belly. There's a different type of grieving when people are hurt. They started just chanting over and over and over. And I had heard stories, but I have never felt and experienced the chant of pain. And they kept hollering, "Walk with us, walk with us, walk with us." And I remember at that point, it's like a tennis match back and forth. And, I called them out, they called me out, then they called me out again, and I had a decision to make. And I say this story to you because I want you to know this is not a Chris Swanson story. It's a story of law enforcement doing three things that I've always believed there's nobody better than us that can do it, specifically sheriff's offices, is we are the best at protecting, serving, and unifying people. You want to solve a problem? Call the sheriff's office. I don't care what it is. We figure it out. And so when they responded back, "Walk with us," I've got all these memories in my head. I got all these things going on. And the whole time lasts 3.2 seconds. I said, "Hey, let's walk." I said, "Let's walk." I said, "We'll walk all night." And all of a sudden, I just started turning. And as I started turning, this instant hate turned to hope. And the people there that just continued to just rail before this happened were now high-fiving. Can I just tell you, when you make a move and you step out, it may be the most terrifying step first. The first step is the most difficult. Do it anyway. And the more you do that, the easier the second step is, the third step. I don't know what it is you're trying to do. I don't know what your vision is, but I'm going to tell you this. Start today. And if you're on it and you've been kind of slow and clunky, keep going. Do not quit. Finish or die trying. Because this moment, as we started turning, it took an hour and a half to go back to the original parking spot. And what I didn't realize is it was being broadcast everywhere. And so we go back to the parking lot, and I met two guys there, Johnny Franklin and Quan. Quan Adams is from Texas. He came up there. I had never met him before. And I said, "Hey, when we get back to the parking lot, we're going to jump on the podium. We're going to jump on a car, and we're going to talk to the people." And we get back there an hour and a half later, and this parking lot is full of people. There's no place to stand. And the only thing that's there is that light pole. So I'm standing on the yellow stanchion of that light pole. I'm holding on to it. And I say this because this moment changed my life forever. I'm not ashamed to admit, if I died today, I'm going to heaven because I believe in my Savior. I didn't have a salvation moment. I didn't have the Holy Spirit come in and sometimes lightning struck. I had a hard transition. I felt it that night. I felt it. I wonder what it's going to take in your life where you can feel what you need to do. Like you don't have an option. Maybe that's happening right now. Because I made a commitment that I can't change everything, and neither can you. I can't change it from Michigan. You can't change it from Texas. But together, we can do a lot of good for a lot of people. And if we do that, what about the other 48? What about all the other nations? What about all the other communities, all the other pain that's out there that's permeated in people's lives? What if we were just to solve one problem that led to all these others? I've been a paramedic since I was 20 years old. As a licensed medic, even to this day, when I have a multi-system trauma, I can't solve everything right now, but I'm going to fix what's killing them first. I'm going to stop the major bleeding. I'm going to get them to breathe again. We'll figure out the broken bones later. Let's just fix this. And after that moment, I said, I can't do everything, but I'm going to do my part. The next day, which was a Sunday, we had another protest scheduled. And so when we left at around midnight, I kept calling county dispatch. Hey, what's going on out there? What's going on? They're like, no, it's quiet. I said, come on, man. Like, what's going on? I called at 2. I called at 5. They're like, Sheriff, everybody went home. Can I tell you this? You know what solves bigger problems or can make a massive problem? It's called hope. The most dangerous inmate in your facility is one who's hopeless. Not the charge. It's the one who has no hope, most dangerous. The ones who have nothing to lose. But you know what actually is the antidote to hopelessness? Hope. I've seen people who have cancer, and they're in great moods because they have hope. I've seen people cancer-free, and they're miserable. I'm just telling you right now, I choose hope all day long. I'm a perpetual optimist. I know that. But I will choose hope because you can sell hope all day long. Hope has no boundaries. Hope has no color. Hope has nothing. If you can sell hope. And that's what happened that day. The next morning, I got contacted by the Associated Press. And the Associated Press feeds 12,000 media outlets around the world. And if they want to get a hold of you, you don't need to give them their number. They'll find you. Because that's what happened to me. Sunday morning, bright, beautiful. I get a call, and there's a reporter from the AP, and I told him the same thing that I just told you. He said, Sheriff, I just want you to know that this is going to be big. I said, I appreciate it. He goes, no, Sheriff, listen, I just want you to know it's going to be big. Now, we had 40 protests that whole summer. 40. We were going to every one of them. They were that next day on my sheriff lawn. Thousands of people protesting on May 31st. Of those 40 little big protests, medium protests, small protests, not a single cop was injured. Not a single protester arrested. Not a single board snapped, glass broke, business burned. Nothing. Nothing. Because we sold hope. And we changed the way we did business. We changed the culture. We didn't back down a bit. We gave them something that I even want as a constituent of the sheriff of the county I serve. I want people to have hope and value. And all that messaging reached 3.2 billion people within 24 hours of this picture being taken. 3.2 billion people around the world. And you know what I kept coming back to? Is they kept saying, that was great, but what's next? That was great, but what's next? That was great, but what's next? If you don't have an answer because you haven't prepared, you have missed the momentum. You have missed it. You and I both know when you're watching something and the momentum shifts. You feel it. If it's a sport, if it's something you just feel when the energy's gone. Momentum is so key. Little did I know that a seed was planted a year before this even took place. A seed was planted because growing up in jail, I mean, I got hired at 18, got hired, as a seasoned Marine deputy, and then 20 as a full-time deputy in the jail. You meet a lot of people, you do a lot of things. You see what jails are, and then I became certified. I told you in 94, and then I saw that. In knowing that I was going to be the sheriff coming up, and you want to make a big impact, you want to do something, I wanted to do a lot for human trafficking and crush evil and the dope, and I wanted to change the way we do jail, because I kept seeing generations come into the jail. At 30 years, you're seeing 3 generations come through. Grandparents, parents, kids, you know the names. There's people in your jail, you're just like, oh yeah, the Gonzaleses are here. Oh yeah, the McDonald family's here. It's like generation after generation. What? We're better than that. So in 2019, I'm on a treadmill and I'm running, and I get this vision in my head. I'm like, oh my gosh, I realized this, because when I was in school, not only was I a bad athlete, it seems like I was a bad kid, I really wasn't. I was not a good academic student. 1.9 grade point average, right? If you have 1.9, you could absolutely work for the government. And so I couldn't even get into U of M. I had to go to community college, and from the community college I went to Michigan, and from Michigan I did a thesis in 98, and I did my thesis on what lowers crime in 1998, and I come to find out that it's hope, value, and education. In 1998, I was just a deputy that was doing a master's thesis, graduated, put it on a shelf for almost 2 decades. I know I'm going to become the sheriff 2019, so I go to a friend. I say, hey man, I got an idea. I said, I think that this year I'm going to be appointed sheriff. We see the same generations of people coming into the jail. What if we were to do something crazy and change the mindset? What if we were to change it from incarceration to education? Not the fact that we don't lock people up, the mindset. What if we change the culture of how we deal with things? I know, I tell you this, if we do that, there's less fights in the jail, there's less assaults in the jail, there's less lawsuits, less broken fingers, there's less problems for my friends in Texas, because we're the only profession, you do one thing and this country's going to see it in 3 minutes. Body cams and surveillance cams and phones. If I were able to do that, what if we were to change the culture? 2019, not even knowing George Floyd's name. And at the time, Jason Gould says, man, I don't know what it's like, but it sounds like a huge lift. Like, I got to wrap my head around this. What are you thinking? I said, hey, I got an idea. What if we were to go to school 5 days a week, 2 hours a day? We build it on a meritocracy, so whenever they do something, they get something. They get a reward. They get some incentivized. And from there, they just keep pushing that along. And if we change the culture there, then we can give like GEDs, diplomas. We can go all these big celebrations, and it's going to keep our staff safe. And if we do that, then we give them a skill set so they don't ever come back to jail. Now we have long-term victims that are never being victimized. And Jason's mind blew, because it's not what we've done since 1836. But he believed in the vision. That's Jason Gould right here. Stand up, Jason. That's right down. You just start with one person. Start with one person. I started with one person that I knew had the same mindset and heart. Said, listen, I don't know all the answers. I don't know how it's going to work out, but I'm telling you, we've been doing the same thing for all these years, and it's not working. What if we were to change the way we do business? I do that with human trafficking now, work hand in hand with Collin County. We establish GHOST, and we arrest pedophiles from all over the country and all over the state of Michigan, because I would much rather be a proactive one going after predators than a reactive answering 911 calls and the damage is already done. Like, if you're going to do something, get ahead of it first and pick people that are going to walk that journey with you. And in 2019, when I met to Jason, I said, hey, we got to come up with something. I said, because I didn't even realize then I'd be asked questions, what's next, Sheriff? And I was able to tell all these media outlets around the world, I know what's next. I.G.N.I.T.E. We're going to change the way we do business in jail. We're going to do things where we actually create a workforce, and we restore families, and we keep people clean and dry, and we're able to do these things. That's what good policing is. Of course, we're going to bear the sword, slay the dragon. That's the protect side. We're going to serve just like servant leadership should be. We're going to unify, bring people together, but if we can keep victims from being victimized, everybody wins. Now, this one, I won't ask for people to stand, but I can guarantee in this room, there are people that you love that have made bad decisions. There are people that share your DNA that are fighting addiction right now. There are people that you know right now you would give everything to get them on a new path. What if Ignite is that answer? And a sheriff in Michigan and a sheriff in Texas joined forces and gave your loved one a chance, because nobody in this room is immune from a second chance. We've all been given one. And when you've been given a second chance, you must not forget, because the second chances in your life apply to others. And when that happens, you're changing cultures. And that's exactly what Ignite has done. I'll see you after the break.
All right, everybody, we're ready to start phase two. Phase two. Let's go ahead and get started. Sheriff Swanson.
All right, thank you, Johnny. Y'all ready? Right on. That's it. We're getting some action today. I appreciate it. We've got a great way to end this. As I told you, there's going to be a moment where you get to raise your hand. And you've been pushed. You don't need to know all the reasons why and how it's going to be done. You just need to have the heart to want to do it. We'll fill in the blanks. There's a lot of things that have already been prepared for you. So this is the call to action. I've mentioned a number of times just how valuable this state is to me. I think back and last night as I was preparing of all the things that Texas has personally meant to me. I love the 50s. And my first connection to the 50s was Buddy Holly. Love of Texas. I love country music. My wife one day, she calls into the radio station. We just got married. We've been married a year. And she wins tickets to Dallas Stadium to see George Strait, Tim McGraw came to Dallas. I think back of all the moments in history, all the things that happened. The civil rights movement came out of your president, Lyndon Johnson, out of Texas. I think about all the things, they call, even though I am a diehard Lions fan, America's team, them Cowboys. How about them Cowboys? When you go to Dallas Stadium, I was there, obviously, Sheriff Skinner took me there. Even if you don't have a history of being a Dallas Cowboy fan, you feel America when you're there. And when you look at those greats that came from there, I think football, food, and music are the great unifiers. But I tell you, there was a time where I really got connected because of a call that came in when I was a captain. And it was a guy that had been separated from his father, and his last memory was when he saw his dad walking out the door. He was just turned 8 years old. His name is Ernesto Alaniz Jr. And as he saw his dad walk away, he never heard from him since. And in Flint, we have a number of project cities, so to speak, and it's a rough city. It's a rough town. And one of them is the East Side, and the East Side is where a lot of Latinos have migrated to and have raised their families there through generations, and that's where he grew up, in those hard East Side streets. And so I got a phone call, and he says, hey, man, he said, I was told that if anybody can help, you can. I said, what do you need? He goes, I haven't seen my dad, and my little brother hasn't seen our dad. His name is Antonio. Since we were both kids, is there any way you could try to find where they are? I said, man, let me see what I can do. I can only do what I'm capable of and what's legal, so give me his name. He goes, Ernesto Alaniz Sr., Corpus Christi, Texas. I said, all right, let me start checking. So I start going back, and I start looking, and I'm going to tell you, I didn't realize how many Alanizes are in Corpus Christi, Texas, because that's like a common name there. And I work on it a couple days, and I have some tracking down, and I find an address, and I call the Corpus Christi Police Department. And I say, listen, can you just do a knock and talk? Go to this address and just leave my business card there and have him call if this is the Ernesto Alaniz Sr. that I'm looking for. Sure enough, they do this. Guy calls me up. He goes, somebody left me this card on my door. I'm calling. Do you have a question about my family? I said, oh, yeah. I said, listen, man, I don't know what you got going on in your life. I don't know if there's somebody that has kind of taken your love and moved it. I'm just a captain at the sheriff's office of Flint, Michigan, But I'm telling you, man, you are Ernesto Alanis Sr., right? Yeah. I said, sir, your boys want to see you. I said, they're grown men now. They are doing great in society, and one's a pastor, and the other one's a drummer, and they just want. He's like, what are you talking about? I said, sir, your boys want to see you. And I'm thinking like maybe his new wife doesn't know he's got an old family, you know. You always got to watch out for those things. He goes, sir, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm like, listen, man, you don't have to deny it. They want to see you. He goes, hey, Captain, my boys are right here. They're 12 and 10. You got the wrong guy. That's when I realized how big Corpus Christi is, and there's more Alanises. So I went back to Ernesto, and I said, you got to give me something. And he said, all right, man, I got to find something. Calls his mom, has an envelope from a letter that was mailed 15 years before with another address, cross-reference it, called back to Corpus Christi and said, I got a new address. Sure enough, to make a long story short, I was able to leave my business card. They wrote down the wrong number, so she tried all weekend to get a hold of me. I had multiple voice messages. On Monday, I get the phone call. And it was the new wife of Senior. And she said, we wanted to check to see if this was a scam, but I want you to talk to my husband. He's from Flint, Michigan. And he gets on the phone. And I said, sir, my name is Chris Swanson. I'm captain at the sheriff's office. You have 2 sons that are trying to get a hold of you, Ernesto and Antonio. I said, would you like to be put in contact? And all I heard on the other end was crying, tears, and sobbing. He goes, I want to talk to my boys. The reason I so love that story is because I love restoring families. Shortly later, he was able to fly up to Pontiac, Michigan. They had a big reunion. That was 10 years ago. So anybody here from Corpus Christi, Texas? Anybody? Man, oh man, I love that town. So thank you for connecting the family. You didn't even know what you did. Corpus Christi. I love Houston. I love Houston, Texas. I know there's a lot that Houston's good, but I did some work with Dave Ramsey when he was in Tennessee, and we actually spoke at one of the big centers it wasn't Lakewood, but it was in Houston. Of course, you cannot not like the Astros. I mean, when you look at Altuve, I mean, that dude is an amazing. Any Astro fans here? All right, got a couple. There we go. All right. So there's a lot of history in Texas. There really is. And when you look at great things and great moves, I don't want to be here today seeing live big hat, no cattle. Skinner taught me that. I see a lot of people who have a lot of opportunity. And you could find, as I said, a lot of reasons why this won't work. That's a big hat, no cattle. I want to see if it's true. That if we're able to be a force multiplier, Michigan, Texas, Minnesota, Pennsylvania, North Dakota, North Carolina, when we're able to see these things come to pass and then you see you reaching out to other people and all these things keep rolling, we become exactly that force multiplier where it starts on a light pole, but it continues across the country. You see, I.G.N.I.T.E, that was birthed in 2019, was an idea before I even knew it was going to be into reality. And it was on that day, on May 30th, where I had to put into action what had already been laid out. Maybe today is that action day for you. Maybe there's something's been stirring inside of you. Something brought you back to part 2. That you're like, listen, I need to know more about this. What if? Now, your system's not set up like Michigan. There's private jails in here. Your system's not set up like New Mexico where the sheriffs don't even run the jails. The county does. They have a county warden. But one thing I always know is if you're in this profession one way or another, you know what it's like to take care of people. You absolutely know. And the fact that you're taking care of human beings is the greatest responsibility in life. Anybody who's caregiving for somebody who has Alzheimer's or somebody who's in hospice, that job of a caregiver is the most difficult and important job in life. Taking care of a human being. You got a newborn, you got somebody that's elderly, you got special needs, taking care of people. It's tough. And you're not alone. When we talked about I.G.N.I.T.E and we talked about changing the culture, there had to be that big fat vision, and then there had to be the steps, and we celebrated every step. And when we launched this, it was during that critical moment where we needed to have people be ambassadors to where we were going. People that didn't look like me and didn't come from where I came from. in order to speak a message to people that I couldn't speak to. And the role reversed, where I can speak and I can talk about things to people that the ambassadors can't speak to. And when you think about the ambassador mindset and you think about all the things that are happening, you do that because when you have voices from multiple levels, you will be able to tap into communities that have all of a sudden just been so distant. You know, when you want to talk to somebody or crack into someone's lifestyle, we talked about, you know, the ones closest to the problem have the solution. You know, a lot of times we don't understand people because we just never asked questions. Whether it's a lifestyle or a culture or a community, we just don't ask. And from this moment, we started this new trend of laying out where we're going to go with I.G.N.I.T.E and all these different moments. And then I had people come into me that said, because of the people that you're trying to deal with, if you employ this ambassador mentality, then we can do things that we've never done before. And so I'm going to tell you, the greatest moves are the ones that have the greatest risk. High risk, high reward. It's not in someone's nature all the time to play it safe all the time, and it's not in someone's nature all the time to play risk. But I will tell you, in this business, time is people. Time is costing people and their families life. The time is now. And when you have people that can speak to crowds that you can't speak to, they become very, very important on messaging. When I said we're going to launch I.G.N.I.T E, I didn't know when we were going to do it. Until they kept asking me, and I thought, all right, this is it. You just got to drop the hammer. We had no infrastructure. We had no tablets, no Chromebooks. But I knew that September 8th, 2020 was the launch of public schools in Michigan. I said, so we're going to launch it on September 8th. We're going to launch it, and we're going to launch it big, which is the reason why we're coming back to Grayson County, who's launching next week. Grayson County, if you hear, stand up. Grayson County, Texas. Right there. Right there. We're launching Grayson County next week, where we're going to actually send and bring the media, and there's a whole protocol that we have, because when you highlight something, you want to celebrate it. You want to show people this is what you can do, and that's what inspires people. So on September 8, 2020, mind you, I.G.N.I.T.E had never been launched. All I said was we're going to change from incarceration to education. I had the pile of Chromebooks there with no connectivity, just props. We had a red ribbon that we were going to cut because I wanted to change the way people thought of jails. We weren't building a new building. I didn't ask for any money. I didn't ask for more staff. I said, we're just going to change the culture. And so when we started building out this launch, I needed people. I needed speakers. I need people to say, I'm not a sheriff like this dude, and I'm not a white dude like this dude, but this is what I am. And let me tell you why I'm with it. Let me tell you why I can get behind it and why it has helped me. And I know there's a little bit of rivalry between them Longhorns and Wolverines, but a dear friend of mine is Jim Harbaugh. Jim Harbaugh, back in the day, got pinched for drunk driving. Spent time in jail. Can I tell you, out of the 350 million people in America, 80 million people in America, 80 million people have done at least one day incarcerated. We already know that in jails in America, only 10% go to prison. The other 90% go back to the streets. I don't care if you're in Jack County, Texas, or Genesee County, Michigan, 9 out of the 10 of the people that come into your jail are addicted or co-addicted. I can tell you that 6 out of 10 have a diagnosed mental illness or an undiagnosed mental illness. 6 out of 10. You become mental health hospitals. I can tell you half the population that comes in your jail can't even read a menu. And yet we bring them in jail, and 9 out of 10 don't go back to the neighborhoods, and we tell them don't ever come back. Don't you reoffend. Don't re-addict. Even though you've lost your house, your apartment, your car, your family, your job, your bills are behind, the utilities are behind, you can never catch up. When you come back, you're like, I told you, why didn't you make better choices? Let me assure you this. When you take away Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the basic level, food, shelter, clothing, safety, people will do whatever it takes to get to that. And if there's no options, if you're standing there in a snowbank and you don't know where to go and what to do, there's a devil and an angel having a conversation. And you're going to do one of two things. You're going to go back to what you know, or you're going to keep pushing forward. And when I find people like that, when I realize people that don't look like me are willing to step up and say, I want to be an ambassador, and we're going to launch this, and I can speak to a crowd, and I believe it, I take note. You have to have ambassadors in your community to make this work. I told you my wife ran with me, but she can't speak to everybody. So I found an ambassador that I've met in 1993. We both started in the jail. And sometimes big, bold moves require big, bold moves. And so I said, hey, I got reconnected. I've seen the transition in his life. And in 2019, when we really kind of caught up with each other in 2020, I said, man, you got to be a part of this launch. If Harbaugh is going to be here, you can be here. Harbaugh, who said, man, I want to be there to show you what happens when we are in Big Ten football, that my job is not to just build a winning team, but to build winning men so they can go beyond football and do something. And you get all these players involved. You know, I had the Justice of the Supreme Court of Michigan, the Chief Justice, Bridget McCormick. She was one of the speakers. But man, it doesn't matter. I'm going to tell you, when you're only speaking to your own echo chamber, everybody's agreeing. So you've got to just mix it up. You've got to mix it up from different people. And that's exactly what we did. I found a guy named Percy Glover. Percy Glover's got his master's degree, and he can speak to communities that I cannot speak to because they don't trust people like me. And I can go to communities where he can't go because they don't trust people like him. And if we show up together and we are in line, then let me tell you the importance of that. You start reaching people that become force multipliers, and it just continues to go. We saw that happen in 2020 because all those different protests and all those different launches kept going one after another. And so Percy, he donated his time for 2.5 years whenever there was problems in the jail. Whenever there was something going on, and he would step up and try to solve it. Whenever we did something that we needed to get a different perspective on. And I saw the community started to trust us more. They started to say, man, if you're willing to bring other people in to speak a message, then we're willing to listen to you. And now we started having dialogue, and more partners come. So we've launched Ignite, and because of the ambassadors, because of the big circle that we're building, more vendors are coming in and partners are coming in, and it's making the whole thing easy. And one thing led to another. Our U.S. congressman came in and wanted to take a tour because that's what's going to happen. Your government officials are going to come into your office and say, what is this I'm hearing? And then they're going to start writing checks because there's 2 reasons why people don't make a move many times, especially in law enforcement. They don't know how to do it, and they don't have the money. Well, we're going to take away the money aspect. We're going to show you how to do it, and you're probably doing a lot of it already. And so when we do that, we remove that barrier, and we start going down the path, and we start showing you all these things, and one thing after another happens, and the congressman shows up. He goes, we're going to fund this thing. And it took 3 years before we got a first dollar. First dollar. Why? Because of people like Percy Glover, who was able to tap in and say, listen, if you want to make this work, you've got to involve all of us. And in October 2022, we started the process. We started the process of funding the ambassador program. And let me tell you, it's gone nationwide. Not only now, but our ambassadors, Percy Glover has taken leadership because part of Ignite is whatever is education. You know, there's no limit. There's no limit. Collin County, Texas are doing an equestrian farm. They're learning how to care for animals. I bought my first pony when I was 9. Her name was Molly. I had it for 18 years. When you're mucking stalls 6 days a week and stripping them on Saturdays, you know responsibility, right? Anybody here take care of livestock growing up? I'll go into business with you any day of the week because you know what it's like. When it's cold and it's wet and it's nasty, you're out there. Man, oh man. That's what Ignite is. It's anything you want it to be when it comes to education. And part of it is voter awareness. Meet the candidates. Your right to vote. Constitutional law. The freedoms of America. Who better to teach that than ambassadors that have been impacted? So Percy became the state's, not even the state's, but even the nation's leader on building out an election system in the jail. Where now, because in the law, if you're not serving a sentence and you're pre-adjudicated or you've done your time, you can vote. That's a core value. And when you teach that and you show people that, and other candidates come in from both parties and all races, and you see this thing happening, it's this huge wave of how successful Ignite is. But you got to have different people. Now, I do know this too. When you go into other communities that are like-minded, you're not going to get the crossfire. You're not going to get shrapnel. But when you go into communities that are hostile, you're going to have to take it. And this guy takes it. Because he shouldn't be with me and I shouldn't be with him according to society. Not one bit. Because Percy Glover did 12 years in prison when he was a young man. He got caught up. And I know this is tough, especially in Texas. You need to have a fist of steel and a hand of velvet sometimes. And when you find people that have been impacted by the system that can help you and want to be part of that change, what? That's what I'm looking for. I guarantee there's people that you have taken care of, incarcerated, that you know are just good people that made a bad mistake. That maybe 9 out of 10 of those addicted, if they didn't have the addiction, they would never do what they did. I want to find those people. I want to find those people who are willing to step up and say, listen, I'll actually put the badge on. I'll actually do something because I believe in what we're doing. And as a sheriff, I get to say, hey, man, I'm going to tell you, this guy I met in 1993, yeah, he was in there on a murder bit. Felony firearm. He did 12 years. He came out and he reformed his whole life. Now he works for the state of Michigan. Now he works for a parole officer. And he's volunteered for 2 years to be part of the change. Listen, Frederick Douglass, the most photographed individual of the 18th century, said, I will work with anybody who unites and nobody who divides. All I'm asking is take away what we look like on the outside. If we dropped a piece of blood on a white piece of paper, you wouldn't know who in this room was white, black, male, female, young, old. You wouldn't. I'm looking for this. I'm looking for heart. And I found it in Percy Glover. And I flew him here to Texas. Ladies and gentlemen, Percy Glover.
Good morning. How's everyone doing? Good, good, good. So I'm a little nervous being up here, not because of the audience, but because it's hurricane, and I need to be in D.C. by tomorrow. So please pray I make it, please. Thank you, Sheriff Swanson. Thank you, Chief Johnny. Definitely a big scream and applaud to Sheriff Skinner. This process over the last handful of years has been a very interesting one. In all transparency, I had zero ambition to work for a law enforcement agency, but this sacrifice is a very important one because as Sheriff emphasized in the best way that it's necessary. There's an energy in the system that's bigger than anyone else in this room that creates a change that's important for the climate of our cultures. My lived experience around incarceration, I spent 11 years, 6 months, 4 days in prison. I've been out going on my 21st year, and it's been truly, truly, truly a blessing from God. The transition back to the community when I was released from everyone that was involved back then, you know firsthand that it wasn't a positive one. It wasn't an easy one. You could not find employment. You could not find resources. You could not find support in any aspect of life. I walked around aimlessly, borderline homeless, straddled the fence, really straddled the fence on whether I wanted to call those, as affectionately as Chief Johnny said, those shade tree pharmaceutical folks. I was really tempted to call them because I had no access to anything. And one of the things I struggle with as it relates to not having resources or support or connectedness, I didn't see the bigger picture. I didn't see the bigger picture in the process that were preparing me to do things that was bigger and larger than life, that's larger than anybody in this room. Through all of the hardship, all of the doors slammed in my face, all of the times I was told no, all of the times you'll be dead, you'll be back in prison in a few years, all of these negative things. It was preparing me for moments like this, where I could share my experience around education on the ugly side that helps everyone learn and how we can be more effective in, it's not the color of this suit, it's not the color of the green that law enforcement and sheriff's departments wear, it's not black and white, it's about humankind and serving humans, serving the people, helping the people gravitate to a better place. I say all the time, my worst experiences are my best experience to educate the people. Because if I hadn't had those experiences, I wouldn't be here today. If I had not had those experiences, I would not be working with Sheriff Swanson. I would not be working with a Major Group. I would not be working with the Megan Bill. But because I had those difficult moments, like Sheriff said, that Iron Man, he got something from it. He learned that as he struggled, because he wasn't as conditioned as he thought he was, when he was going up those hills in Wisconsin, he had somebody right there by his side, his wife, Mrs. Jamie Swanson. And when you're in your facilities, when you're in your jails, the people right by your side that you can impact the most, that can impact you, are probably the people that you arrested, are the people that are residing in your jail, that you can give the baton and they can carry it a little farther in areas and aspects and with people, as Sheriff Swanson said, that you may not be able to reach. But if you work together collectively, guess what? You reach everyone. Everyone. And that's the important part of the goal and cause, is that it's not about me. It's not about you. It's about us all. And what can we do to help one another, to help the next person, help the next woman, that can help the next child, that can make the next person's life better. And that we create this domino effect where we pick up everyone. Again, thank you, Sheriff Swanson. Thank you, Chief Jockeys. Thank you all. Again, thank you so much, Collin County. Thank you, Galveston. I really enjoyed the last couple of days here. Great place. I would love to come back and visit. Definitely screams to my friend, Sheriff Skinner. This has been great. Thank you all again.
Thanks, Percy. Thank you. Living proof that we make our own barriers. We give ourselves a reason why not to do things. And I know it's a big risk doing this. I mean, people will call it, hug a thug and all the things you're weak on it. Are you kidding me? There is great strength on looking for solutions that save lives. It may not be what people categorize it as or what they thought it would be, but if it works, it works. And that's what I'm talking about. You've got people right at your fingertips that you can already start calling and texting and say, listen, I know you never thought about this, but what if we work together to send a message? What if we started building this team together and you started moving down that line? That's what's going to happen here. And I assure you this, we have the game plan, we have the playbook, the algorithm to make it a success. Now, what does that success look like? Results. Results. I mean, I can show you all the testimonies that I have. You want to see numbers. So when we started September 8, 2020, I had Major Gould track every data point, every one of them, every contact hour, every test taken. We did our assessments for math and reading. We had, as I said, no infrastructure. We did paper and pen. We brought in all of our high school partners and said, who can give GED and diplomas? Who can implement that like right now? Who can start building out our infrastructure? Got a hold of our communications vendor. Can you start putting Wi-Fi in the pods? We got a hold of Airmark, which is our food vendor. Can you start doing this Serve Safe program? When can you get up and running? Sometimes you just got to keep pushing and pushing and pushing. We've got a word in our office that is a naughty word, is we do not linger. We do not linger. We push and push and push and push. And when we do these things, you break down things that have been once barriers. And so we started figuring out like, well, what about this? What about that? I wanted timelines because the difference between busy and production is a timeline. So I said, when can we get all this infrastructure done? and let's start doing a deal because I'm not paying a dime. I'm not paying a dime. You want my vendor contract, you've got to figure out how to get the hardware into this facility. We'll extend another contract, another year or two extensions. You bring in your tablets, you bring in the Chromebooks. Let's get a cooperation going here. Okay, Airmark, you're going to take the Serve Safe. When can you start? January of 2021. Let's do it. When's our first graduation? Oh, Leon Mize? All right, we're going to put it on social media. We're going to celebrate the fact that he put 246 hours of training in at the kitchen and then took a federal test that he can go to any restaurant in the nation with a Serve Safe certification and get a job. Now Leon Mize isn't sitting on the road just re-addicting and re-offending. All right, we get this graduation. Now we start bringing in the family members. One thing led to another, led to another. 6 months later, we started looking at our data. We started looking at in-pod violence. We started looking at the rate of injuries of our deputies. Fingers and wrists started to plummet. The codes on our floors, the code greens for fights and refusal lockdown started plummeting. You started to see people the whole shift. And mind you, staff, they weren't all on it, and they still aren't today, some of them. But that's where leadership comes in. You start pointing out the benefits of what's happening. You go to the unions, if you have unions, and you tell them, hey, listen, your members aren't being injured anymore. They're being protected. They're safer. They're doing their job, one after another. It's like taking confessions for murder. You knock out the first denial, you're getting your confession. And so we started building this thing out, and all of a sudden, boom, which now Viapath built out the whole infrastructure. We got our first group of tablets in. We started showing that this meritocracy means that during the day, you go to school. At night, you get to play. We know what that means on a Saturday. Don't go out and play until you get your chores done. Which means that we built this training into anybody in the jail, whether it's colors and numbers or geometry. Everybody's going to have access to it an hour before lunch, an hour before dinner. You get your Chromebook, you get your teaching done. Once that's out and you get to go to lunch, you get an extra hour out. Then we started seeing that if you do this at night, you get your tablets, movies, games, music, you get your own headphones, and then on top of that, you finish a course. Oh my gosh, a 6-week course, we got to give them something. You know what a lot of people in our jails have never gotten? A good job. Hey man, good job. You know what they've gotten? Broken homes that maybe people in this room know exactly what that means. It doesn't matter how good you were, nobody gave you any kind of edification. Nobody said, hey, I'm proud of you. You grew up in that brokenness, and by God's grace, you aren't in locked up. But there's a lot of people that are locked up that have never been just say, hey man, great job, I'm proud of you. Hey, I just want to tell you, man, I know you worked hard to get your GED or your diploma. And one thing led to another. We started tracking this data. Within 6 months, our violence in the jail went down 90%, 9-0. Then we started seeing that by promoting their story, it caught the attention of USA Today, Eileen Rivers. Because at the same time it caught that attention, it caught the attention of the National Sheriff Association, which represents 3,084 sheriffs in America. They're based out of Virginia, of which Sheriff Skinner is on the board. And one thing led to another, because people are always looking for the next opportunity, and sometimes when it hits, you got to jump. So USA Today did a story in 2021, and they started to talk about I.G.N.I.T.E, and that became a huge story where I could go back to and say, see, it's happening, it's working. Caught the attention of the NSA, and so they asked me to come down to Phoenix, Arizona and present. So I went down to Phoenix, Arizona, and I started talking to I.G.N.I.T.E exactly like I'm talking to you. Not a single site besides Flint, Michigan. I'm sitting here and I'm talking with Alice Johnson. Alice Johnson did over 25 years for a marijuana charge, and she was given a commuted sentence, and she was released, and her and I were co-presenting. And right at the end, right up in the center aisle, was the sheriff, Hutchinson, comes up. He says, hey, we need to get I.G.N.I.T.E. How do we do this? I just can't call it I.G.N.I.T.E. I said, why? He goes, because that just means what my city experienced, because I can't talk about fire. I said, Sheriff, where are you the sheriff? Minneapolis, Minnesota, Hennepin County. That's the only I.G.N.I.T.E site in the country that's up and running that's called something other than I.G.N.I.T.E. I'm going to tell you, when Sheriff Hutchinson came up from Minneapolis, Minnesota, where it all started, don't tell me that's by accident. Don't tell me that the first building burned in Minneapolis, Minnesota was the target. May 30th, at that parking lot was the target, and the first sheriff to come up in Phoenix, Arizona, was the sheriff of Hennepin County, Minneapolis, Minnesota. No way. I don't believe it. I believe that we are on the cusp of something great. Because once we launched it there, and I took Percy and John L., and we went down there, and Jason Gould was there, and we launched it down in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and everybody's looking at Minneapolis like, what? Minneapolis? Oh yeah, they're up and running. And then one thing led to another. Next thing you know, Charlotte, North Carolina. Another site where there's riots. Gary McFadden. He's like, man, I got to do this, man. This guy was a homicide dick for 20 years for the Charlotte PD. Had his own homicide show. He's like, man, I'm a sheriff now. We want to do this. He goes, I didn't even get raised in the sheriff's office, but this makes sense. Sheriff, you want to ignite in Mecklenburg County? Absolutely. Boom. Not only that, the Ignite board through the NSA, he's the president. I'm not even on the board. One thing leads to another. Fargo, North Dakota, into Pennsylvania, all the way into Michigan, all over. 20% of the states in America now have an Ignite site. But I'm telling you, I kept hearing this name. Who's this Skinner guy? Collin County, Texas. You got big sheriffs down there. I met him at a couple events. I met him in Kansas City. Well respected. You know, Texas is well respected. You may not see it or hear it because you're from here, but I'm telling you, from an outsider, you are well respected. There's a reason why they say anything big comes from Texas. And so when I heard about Skinner coming up, and we met in Kansas City, Missouri, and I had met him, and I said, listen, you give me a shot to prove it. I won't let you down. The NSA won't let you down. We'd already had all these different data points, and we'd already caught all these different, graduation ceremonies, and more people are coming. And he said, yes, the first one in the state of Texas. And we walked down there, and we did a launch, and I remember he was concerned about some media exposure, and what would they say about the tough sheriffs, and Texas being soft on crime. That ain't soft. That's having a heart. That's having a heart. I looked at one sheriff who opened up the door to the entire state. Remind me of them Rangers. I grew up hearing the story about the Texas Rangers. I love Marty Robbins. I love gunfighter ballads. You don't understand. What you do resonates to little kids in Flint, Michigan. And what you deny and what you refuse to do is going to impact those same kids one day, and you won't even know it. But you only need one sheriff. I don't need you. That's it. I don't need the people. I just need you. Ignite needs you. And when Skinner stepped up and we launched it over a year ago, it was done deal. It wasn't a question. It was like, this is where we're going. And we took leadership. And I remember watching after that first rollout, we launched it, man. And that night at Cowboy Stadium, he started seeing these news articles pop up from the announcement. ABC, NBC, man, and they got the biggest grin. Sheriff Skinner. He was so happy that people saw the vision. You know, when you fight unnecessary battles, it's unnecessary energy. But he saw that even the media was starting to pull and say, hey, man, we're doing this now, full steam ahead. Now Johnny's here, recruited from Lubbock, Texas. There's no turning back, is there, Johnny? Zero. Because I'm being encouraged by the results from Collin County, Texas. I'm seeing what's happening. I'm seeing this whole thing and all these different graduations pop up and all these stories. And the whole time, the sheriff's office, I'm saying, stay the course, stay the course. We have a graduation every 60 days. And one thing leads to another. Now we have barber college. I got deputies who are licensed barbers doing barber school. Now we have barbers in the jail that are teaching other barbers on all the floors. We've got financial literacy where we have a credit union or bank. Ours is a credit union, came in and teaching people how to deal with money. I don't even want to talk to you about financial responsibility, but I know what it was like in 2004 when Chris Swanson and his wife Jamie were $480,000 in debt. And the reason I know so much about Dave Ramsey is because I bought his book on August the 30th, 2004 on the way to a condo that I had mortgaged. And on the way up there, I realized I'm just making payments. Bless my parents' heart. They didn't teach me money. And I said one day, when I'm done, man, I'm paying everything off. I wanted to give it done in 5 years. 27 months later, 2005, at the tail end, man, I saw this thing happen. In 2006, I saw it happen into 2007. I called Dave Ramsey on a Friday, and I said, I'm debt-free, baby. And I saw what it meant to me, and so we implemented it in the jail. There's people here right now, up to your eyeballs in debt. You should have got that book 10 years ago. Because nobody taught you. Nobody taught me. When I was a fat kid growing up, nobody taught me how to eat. Nobody taught me how to train. I had to learn that from other heroes. And now I train other people. I show other people how to do it. And you get to do the same thing. It just keeps going and going and going. Man, when I started seeing the articles pop out and graduations pop out, and then the NSA says, hey, we want to be there. Jonathan Thompson came up. They started a whole division within the NSA, run by Megan Beale, who literally said, this is what I was built for. Megan Beale, a civilian who worked on Capitol Hill, who said, listen, I see the value in this. Says, I'm going to move my whole profession into what I'm doing. I want to run Ignite nationwide. I want the NSA to be behind it. And they created the full division, and Megan Beale's the director of Ignite. Stand up, Megan Beale's here today. Right there, the National Sheriff Association. I come double barrel here in Texas, yo. I'm bringing everything out. Which is the reason why Shaggy, remember Bombastic? Remember the song? Remember the naughty song? Who remembers Shaggy's naughty song? Wasn't me. Oh, yeah. Okay, look at you. You're even singing it. So you need to go ask for forgiveness because you thought of that naughty song too soon. Yeah, it wasn't me. But let me tell you, he does know it. Shaggy flies from New Zealand to come to a graduation in Flint, Michigan. And then one day, about 2.5 years ago, I've been hearing this name, a new artist that pops up. Big old dude from Tennessee, got his GED when he was 23 years old in jail, named Jelly Roll. And Jelly Roll can relate to a lot of people because of his background and his story. And so I was there at the Country Music Awards in Nashville, and we just missed each other. And I have different people in different places, and the country music station out of Detroit said, hey man, just send Jelly a video of Ignite because you caught his attention. So I send a video to him. I'm like, what's up, Jelly? It's Chris Swanson. I'm in my car. I said, I know you got your GED when you were locked up, man. You should see what's happening in Flint, Michigan. I tell you, come up here, you'll never be the same. I held back a little bit, but I get excited in life. And man, he sent me a video back. He just got off the bus. He's like, hey, Sheriff, this is Jelly. Me and Busty the bus dog, we're coming to Flint. We don't know when, we're coming to Flint. Well, he has a concert in Detroit December 5th, 2023. I'm thinking, man, this is probably it. So I go up on the floor. I'm like, hey, fellas. I said, you guys graduating Barber College. We got a bunch of other graduates here. We're going to cut a video for Jelly Roll. And I went, what's up, Jelly? I said, the fellas want to say hi. They went buck wild. I send that video out within a week. He's confirmed, December 5th. He flies from Detroit all the way up with a motorcade and comes to a graduation at the Genesee County Jail. And I asked him to do one thing. All I want you to do is play Johnny Cash in the jail. That's it. Man, this dude walks in, bro hug and all, his whole entourage. He comes up and he sees what we do, because when we do a graduation for you, you'll never forget it. We're going to do it up, aren't we? We're going to do it up. Megan, we're going to do up our graduations? Without question. And we did this up, man. We've got stanchions and bleachers in the pods. 200 killers. Flint. Because nobody is exempt from Ignite. I don't care what you're in there for. I don't testify to the judges. I don't send letters. I don't advocate. If you're in Ignite, that's your business. You don't leverage this for your case. Don't ever ask me to testify for you because you're in Ignite. That's what you ought to be doing before you got here. And Jelly sees this happening, man. He sings 5 songs. Lights the place up, man, and gets done, and he's like, hey, man, I want to get my beard trimmed up. I'm going to the concert. So one of the inmates is trimming up his beard. He looks over at me and goes, you know, Sheriff, what you're missing? You're missing music. I said, oh, my gosh, you're right. Right there, the UAW. They have a big office right there, and the director of the office said, hey, listen, if you bring it, I'll pay for it. Now, that's music to my ears because this is also a business decision. Sure enough, we get that all lined up. I'm like, we're getting music here, man. We're getting music. And we just launched, just last month, the Jelly Roll Jailhouse Music Studio. Paid for by the UAW. 15 grand, wrote the check. I promise you this. If there's a sheriff in this room that wants to do a jailhouse music studio, I'll get it paid for by the UAW. I'll get it paid for. Won't cost you a dime. I tell you, if there's a sheriff in this jail, I'm telling you, in this county, in this state, that wants to do welding like we do, now I'm not talking the actual welding machines. I'm talking virtual reality. I understand the restrictions, but if you want to do welding and do these nice, cool things they do in the prisons, if you want to do this in your jail and you have welding, I will guarantee that the Iron Workers of America will give every one of your graduates a hood, a pair of gloves, and an apron, a $550 value at every graduation. And I'll tell you that they'll have a direct entry into the apprentice program, coming out making $40 to $45 an hour. I guarantee it. I'll tell you one more. I'm going to tell you, if you want to do a CDL training in your jail, you want to learn how people how to drive truck, then I'll get the Teamsters behind it, and they'll provide the training. And there'll be a direct connect into the Teamsters. You may not have the union contacts I do, but I guarantee they're everywhere. There's partners everywhere. These are just a few of my partners. Imagine how many you got. You're the second biggest state in the freaking country. You got things that I want. Man, when Jelly came last month, he flew into Saginaw, which is about an hour north of us, and I motorcaded him back to Flint. Do you know Jelly Roll gets $2.5 million every 90 minutes? He's at the highest. He's at Taylor Swift level. He's surpassed. His momentum is so big now that he gets $2.5 million 90 minutes a day. And I didn't pay a dime. I didn't sign a contract. I didn't sign an agreement. He just showed up twice. And you know what happens? That gives validation. It gives credibility. Think of the context that you have that could show up for your graduation and bring credibility to your program. Because of the NSA, at an exhibit hall right downstairs, much like you saw, Megan's husband was talking to a lady. She was a PhD, and she was standing there all by herself. And Megan from the NSA's husband walked up and said, "So what do you do?" She says, "I'm a researcher. My name is Dr. Marcella Alsan." Well, long story short, what do you research? Health and economics. Because I may not be hitting your button about jail reforms and Percy. I may not be hitting your butt when it comes to, things we're doing in our profession, but I do hit buttons when it saves you money. I do talk business. When we talk about saving dollars, that makes sense to all of us. And he said, "Man, I got somebody you want to meet." So Dr. Alsan and Megan linked up, and one thing led to another, and I get a phone call. And it's the NSA saying, "Hey, we have somebody who'd like to meet with you. Come up." And so Dr. Alsan flew up, and she was just out of country. And she's not only just a PhD, she's a PhD, she's an MD, and she's an economist. She was all over the world and studies public health and its relative relationship to economies. And she came up to an I.G.N.I.T.E graduation. I promise you this. You want to come to a graduation, come to Flint, Michigan. You will never forget it. I bring gift bags that aren't shirts and tumblers. They're good food. I buy lunches for everybody. You will not forget what you see, and that's exactly what Dr. Alsan saw. She came up, and she was blown away. Blown away. She goes, "I have some friends I want to talk to." Just a short month or two later, this is 2022, she's like, "I have an MOU that I'd like to present." So Harvard University, where she is employed as a tenured professor researcher, linked up with Brown University and linked up to the University of Michigan out of Ann Arbor, and they wanted to study this thing called I.G.N.I.T.E. They want to see if all the hype is just hype, or is there something to it? That's what they're used to doing, public health. So I said, absolutely. I signed the MOU, a no-cost contract, and I opened up the entire facility to Harvard, Brown, and Michigan. Whatever data you want, whatever interviews you want to do, whatever surveys you want to do, when you have nothing to hide, you have nothing to fear. And they were in there for 2 years. And I kept hearing little things, Major Gould would say, "You won't believe what they're finding." They interviewed and surveyed my staff. They surveyed impacted communities. They surveyed Flint, Michigan. They went out in the street. They poured hundreds of thousands of dollars into these studies, and I just let them do it because I know it works. In February of this year, I got the word. They're like, "Man, you got to come see this." And they pre-release, because every time there's a study, I'm telling you, Johnny, they have to go through all these peer research groups, and there's 4 of them. And after the 4th peer research group, big universities like this publish their data. And when it's published, it's like being part of a precedent-setting case in law. If your name is precedent-setting in law, it's there forever. They just came back, and I got a text Dr. Peter Hall, he's one of the other PhDs part of it. He says, Sheriff, I just got from one of my peer research groups, and there wasn't a single question about the validity of the study. The question was, how do we get this across America? How do we get this across America? He said, I'm in peer research. They poke holes in everything we do. That's why we do it. And all they said was, this makes sense. And it can work in a population of Flint or this population incarcerated, then it can work in any population around the world. The poor in Africa and the starving in Haiti and all these different populations, any population that's hopeless, you implement IGNITE, it's going to work. And when I saw that data, I'm telling you, this thing is a big old thick volume and stats and all the things that I couldn't do in high school because I had that strong 1.9. I saw at the end the conclusion. And the conclusion brings me to tears sometimes because it said if it can work in Flint, Michigan, it can work anywhere in the country. I'm going to tell you, man, there's a reason for this. And what they said worked is what resonates to all of us. It keeps my people safe, both the community and the staff. Isn't that our job? It keeps the inmates safe and their families with hope, reduces liability. And I know those all feel good, but this is what I really love, numbers. I love data. I love data. And when they tell me it reduces jail violence, that they can prove 49% of reported incidents, that's cutting in half. That means half my staff. That means 50% of my staff is that much more safe because of IGNITE. Even the ones that don't agree with it, they're safe. Job done. Check. When you have IGNITE in your community, we always talk about recidivism, repeat crime and offense, reduces recidivism by 23%. 23%. You tell me who can stand in front of a group of people and say, I've got a solution that reduces crime by a 25% in your community. Doesn't matter where you are. And I got the data to show it. So says Harvard, Brown, and Michigan. But this one will really hit you. Gets down to money. I remember when I was broke in 2004, I never had cash. But I always carry a $100 bill in my wallet. Always. Because it's a reminder of just how hard it was for me to work to get that $100 bill. It's a reminder not to give it away to people who didn't work hard for it, which is the reason why I don't have debt. The reason why I make good, healthy decisions financially. The reason I have discipline and discernment. And the same thing is there. When I have somebody that's willing to raise their hand and say, man, I got a way to save you money, you got my attention again. And as a leader, as a sheriff, I'm overseeing $32 million, 274 people and all their families. I better know about money. A community of 450,000 people. I'm responsible as their elected sheriff. I better do my job. 1 month of IGNITE per inmate saves your community $5,600 per year. You tell me what other government function that's law enforcement related that can save nearly $6,000 per person per year in your community. I can show you the data. Our jail is built and rated for 580. On average, since I've been sheriff before IGNITE, we were always overcrowded. In the last calendar year, our in-bed population is 100 inmates less than it was a year ago, which is a savings of Flint, Michigan, $560,000. That's real money. We have 100 less inmates in the jail. We're arresting everybody. I could do a whole talk about IGNITE, and I could do a whole day talk about human trafficking and what we're doing to crush dope. You want to see the police side of Swanson? Come back next year. But if you want to save communities money by educating inmates, there's your answer. There's your answer. February of this year, Jason Gould says, hey, where are you? You remember Major Gould? He's back there, 2019. I said, this is my idea. I said, I'm on my way back from Saginaw. He goes, I got something for you when you get here. And I walk in and he says, I just got contacted by the World Literacy Foundation. The World Literacy Foundation. He said, they've been tracking IGNITE. They've been reading the articles and they've been watching the videos because I promote what we do. Social media, I reach 3.2 million people every month and a half, millions and millions of people. And I don't count on the media. I have my own media channels. I put it out there, unedited, unfiltered, unvarnished, unscripted. Just say it. He said, man, you caught their attention and they've seen this. They've taken the study. And they want you to present in Oxford University in London in April of 2025 for the World Literacy summit. You know what we get to do is we get to be used. This launch that's happening on the 17th, Scott, where are you? Scott right there, and the sheriff of Grayson County, I'm not even going to be there. Megan will be there, and guess who's launching it? With the sheriff of Grayson County. Johnny, tell us who? Bingo, baby! That was like a game show. Jim Skinner's going from Collin County to his partner in county because of people like Scott, who's the biggest megaphone Ignite, and I'm not even there. You don't need me. We may never cross paths again. I doubt it, because I'm going to be the president. But we're going to be a change agent together. And imagine what you can do with your circle of influence. Imagine. I talked about big fat visions for a reason. Because if you don't have them, nothing's getting done.